Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're going to continue our study of Jesus' parables from Matthew's Gospel today by finishing with the parables in the parable sermon, Matthew 13. And we've had two long parables given um, continuously, back to back. Parable of the sower and the parable of the tares. And then we had two, we have three sets of paired parables that Jesus tells. The first two deal with um, the growth of the kingdom, the mustard seed and the leaven and the lump. And then we have two parables paired together, the treasure in the field and the pearl of great price, which deal with the cost and the value of the kingdom. And then we have these final two. And the Dragnet has so many parallels and connections with the tares that it's hard not to connect the two because they are connected. But it couples with the parable of the scribe, which really it has less in common with except for the, the primary notion of sorting out. So we're going to read those two together, and this ends Jesus' teaching at this time. He's taught the crowds, and then he's dismissed them and followed up with his apostles. And this is the end of this sermon. Matthew chapter 13. I'll be reading verses 47 through 40 through 52. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet cast into the sea and gathering fish of every kind. And when it was filled, they drew it up on the beach, and they sat down and gathered the good fish into containers, but the bad they threw away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels shall come forth and take out the wicked from among the righteous, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. And there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood these things? They said to him. Yes. Yeah, I don't think so. Um, And he said to them, therefore, every scribe who has become a disciple of the kingdom is like the head of a household, who brings forth out of his treasure things new and things old. Um, one of these two parables is really about the kingdom, all of the kingdom. And then the second parable is about the way he's preparing them, that he's loading them up with tools to use later. Um, but they both are joined by the notion of sorting, and the notion of sorting is what ends this sermon of parables. So we have the dragnet. So most of these guys would have had weighted nets. There were different sizes, and there were nets that you could throw from the seashore. And they would be connected to a rope, and they would have weights on the ends of the net. And you'd throw them out, and then it would land, and the weights would take it down, and then you would draw it up with the rope and pull it back and see what you caught. And that's kind of what they did when they were fishing from their boats. They didn't have lines, and they weren't chumming or anything. They were net fishing, and they would do basically the same thing, but with larger nets, using multiple people in the deeper water. With multiple boats, you could use a drag net. You could use a larger net with heavier weights, and as you row across, you could drag large swaths of fish and pull them in, and then gather them to the beach and sort them out. It seems indiscriminate, and it is, but it is a perfect metaphor for the human population, and that there will be a sorting at the end of time. And then he talks about the teacher himself. Every scribe, to be a professional scribe, someone who was skilled at writing, um, who was very literate, who had access to texts. They were the experts of the law. And he says that the scribes in the kingdom Um, every describe who is a disciple of the kingdom is a little bit different. They're going to have a house full of treasures, and they're going to be able to pull out from the old and the new whatever is needed and in whatever combination needed for the moment. And he's telling them you're going to have lots of resources, communication resources, scriptural resources. I'm teaching you how to teach as well as teaching you the truth. And he has everyone who would communicate. Jesus is the master communicator, and he teaches us to use wisdom and stories and 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 common sense, um, and and blessing and warning, and all the tools that he used to communicate what is true to people who need to hear the truth. And it seems to me that this parable that he ended with is, is asking them to look forward to the time when they themselves will be the teacher, and to remember that Jesus, as head of household, has shared the, his multiple treasures with them. Okay. Well, the next time that we're together, we're going to have a few parables before we get to the next sermon. Actually, we're going to have, I think, just a few. Let me see how many we're going to have before the kingdom sermon. I don't guess we are going to have any before we get to the kingdom sermon. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 18 next time. I don't know how I confused my own self. And look at the two parables that are there in the kingdom sermon in Matthew chapter 18. One short, one that we know very well, and one long. And the long one was, it's one of the masterpieces of storytelling in all of human literature. And we'll look at that next time. So thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.